Guys, I can't remember the last time I played this much Iron Banner. And that's because for the first time in quite a while, we actually have genuinely good rewards. Now, we've already done a review on Tusk of the Boar if you haven't checked that out. But TLDR on that one, in my opinion, Tusk of the Boar is a very good grenade launcher and one that you're going to want for future strand builds. Today, though, we're going to be looking at the Multimach CCX. This is a lightweight frame, 900 round per minute kinetic SMG. And back in the day, this used to be the PvP SMG. Now, this is back when this had 17 zoom. It and Shayura used to tear up the Crucible together. And the question is, does Multimach still have that power? Especially in this landscape with so many great SMGs out there. From Unending Tempest to Immortal to Recluse literally coming back to us next week. The competition here is stacked. We're going to be looking at this SMG though inside of PvP, but we're also going to be looking at it inside of PvE. Yes, there are some very desirable roles for my PvE players as well. Now I'm going to start by looking at its stats. Multimach at base has 29 range, 38 stability, 70 handling, 26 reload speed, 55 aim assist, 15 zoom, 12 airborne effectiveness, and a recoil direction of 100. Now comparing this to other lightweight SMGs, Multimach is pretty much in line with them. You've got SMGs like Out of Bounds, which has slightly more range. Its stability is a bit on the low end compared to things like Callus Mini Tool and Submission, but again, not the worst. And it happens to have the highest handling at 70, tied with Submission. This on top of the intrinsic lightweight that Multimach is why a lot of people like this archetype, and also why it feels so fluid. Now we do have a few things that have changed though. Most notably, it's 15 zoom, which is pretty rare in SMGs, especially nowadays. Most sit around 14 or even 13, but Multimach here, being a lightweight, is sitting at 15. Now zoom doesn't increase range anymore, but it does have other benefits, such as aim assist fall off, reticle stickiness, past damage fall off range. Essentially, the weapon is supposed to feel better even past its damage fall off zone. Again, this is all in theory. Now I'm gonna go over our perk options. In our third column, we have dynamic sway reduction, under over, rangefinder, moving target, attrition orbs, and iron gaze. In our fourth column, we have frenzy, kinetic tremors, target lock, iron reach, kill clip, and tap the trigger. Now keep in mind, guys, all of these traits will be retroactively enhanceable in the final shape. I want us to start with our PvE options first. Now I know Multimach, most PvE players are like, why would I ever use that? This is a PvP weapon cross. However, guys, I want you to consider a few of these trait combinations. One of the traits is under over. It says that it deals bonus damage to targets with overshields and deals a small amount of bonus damage to combatant shields. Now, this is a 125% increase in damage against PvE combatant overshields and a 50% increase in damage against barrier champion shields. And for PvP, it's actually really nice because it's a 20% increase against player overshields and a 20% increase in body shot damage against players with woven mail. Now, the extra damage inside of PvE against those shields is pretty nice. Again, depends on what you're going against. But considering that this weapon is a kinetic weapon, you already have that default extra damage to begin with. Now, why this interests me so much is that in the final shape, we're going to be going up against a new enemy type called subjugators, which I'm assuming are going to be spreading woven mail to PvE combatants. Again, I understand that it's a niche scenario, but I am interested to see how this performs. On top of that, once under over is enhanceable, it will deal improved damage, which is something we're going to definitely have to collect pre and post data on for Multimach. Now, the only other option in column 3 that I can think of is attrition orbs, where dealing sustained damage creates an orb of power. Now, unfortunately on Multimach, this takes 26 shots to proc. And granted, there's so many things you can utilize with an orb of power. You can give yourself surges, you can proc health regeneration, you get super energy. There's a ton of other benefits within our subclasses that benefits from picking up an orb. And when we have the enhanced version, this will grant us even more super energy. Currently right now at base, it's 0.8% of our super. Enhanced may round up to say 1%. What I do like about attrition orbs is that if you're going up against like beefier targets that you don't get the kill on, you don't have to worry about proccing something like a siphon mod. Instead, just landing those shots will drop you that orb. Now in our fourth column, I think the immediate choice for my PvE players is kinetic tremors. Let me be honest, this is pretty much our go-to perk on every kinetic weapon we have. The perk reads that sustained kinetic damage to a target emits a shockwave that damages any nearby targets. Now the reason why we knew this was going to be a good perk is because Showrunner, which is another lightweight SMG, also has kinetic tremors, and I enjoyed it a lot there. Now in SMGs, it takes 14 shots to proc, which is pretty fast on a 900 round per minute SMG. Its tremor damage is 11,503, which procs for 3 times, gifting us 34,509 damage. And this is just from our tremors alone. Then in the final shape, when we can enhance this doesn't increase our damage of kinetic tremors, but it's gonna drop how many shots are required to proc. Now we don't have have kinetic tremors enhanceable on an SMG, at least not to my knowledge. I'm assuming it's gonna go probably from 14 shots to maybe 12. Now, I know 12 may not seem like that big of a deal, and we're gonna get into kinetic tremors inside of PvP, but proccing at 12 shots rather than 14, that's when you can really start making a case for kinetic tremors for my PvP guys. Again, very situational. I know Cool Guy talked about it the other day, but it is one of those things that does kind of guarantee yourself a kill. Not necessarily my favorite at base, but an enhanced version of kinetic tremors, I'm willing to give that a go. Now, in terms of other PvE perks, you've got options like target lock. Keep in mind on SMG, this requires 20% of your magazine to be fired before it will proc. There's also frenzy, which is always a good one. This is a 15% damage bonus, and it also maxes out our reload speed, as well as our handling, simply for being in combat for 12 seconds. And considering Master of Arms and its damage buff just got revealed to us, everyone is asking, why would I use Master of Arms when frenzy literally does the same amount of damage, plus gives you reload benefits? Look, that's a valid assessment. And there's a variety of SMGs that can roll with frenzy. Multimach here with frenzy is still a good option. After that, we have kill clip, which of course is a 25% damage buff. More of a PvP perk for me, but yes, you can utilize it inside of PvE. Now, this takes us to our origin traits. There's not a lot benefiting us here in regards to Skulking Wolf. It states that while at low health, Guardian final blows with this weapon grant enhanced radar and remove you from the opposing radar. Again, this is a PvP origin trait. The origin trait, though, that you definitely want to use is field tested. Defeating targets or dealing damage with this weapon gradually increases range, stability, handling, and reload speed. Fellas, field tested is a solid origin trait. The beautiful thing about field tested is that you don't lose this buff. As long as you don't die, you got it. And its benefits at the high end are overwhelming. So what is my God roll for PvE on Multimach? In my opinion, guys, kinetic tremors is really what makes Multimach special. It's only the third SMG with this perk. Now, granted, I'm sure the final shape is gonna bring us another kinetic SMG, but right now, we only have Multimach and Adjudicator that are gonna have enhanceable kinetic tremors in the final shape. And personally, for PvE, I just think Multimach is better than Adjudicator. It has higher DPS at 26,410 compared to Adjudicator's 24,002. And with kinetic tremors, this increases our DPS to 41,094 compared to the 37,469. And keep in mind, guys, it's still the same amount of shots required from both of these SMGs. The difference is that Multimach is getting its shots out faster, therefore getting faster kinetic tremor procs. Now, what is the best perk to pair with kinetic tremors? Well, we tried out Attrition Orbs, hoping that there would be some synergy here, but there really isn't. You see, when proccing kinetic tremors, I was hoping, because of the fact that it's proccing so many times, I know it's 3 waves, but it's like multiple hits, I was hoping that would contribute more. But instead of it requiring 26 shots to proc Attrition Orbs, with kinetic tremors, it simply requires 23, which really doesn't make that big of a difference. I don't know, guys. I just feel like in this case, because of all the damage values, it should be counting more than just the 3 waves of kinetic tremors. Can you still make a play with Attrition Orbs? Absolutely. Is there going to be some drastic, crazy synergy that's happening here with kinetic tremors? Not that we've observed. Now, this led us to Under Over, which really wasn't too bad. Both of these perks together allowed us to take out targets with shields fairly easily. Yes, I love Overflow on Showrunner, but dude, placing a kinetic tremor proc into a group of enemies that are shielded and let Under Over carry the damage, it's got beautiful synergy. And considering that we have field tested as our origin traits, I find the reload speed on Multimach to not be that bad. Believe me, guys, I have loved Showrunner now for quite some time. But considering that Multimach is going to have enhanceable traits, if you're looking for a solid kinetic SMG with kinetic tremors, I think I'm going to be leaning a bit more toward Multimach. Now, I know for my PvE players, you're like, dude, I am never stepping in Iron Banner. Hell no. And to them, I just say, hey, have you checked out my Titan build? It's literally the most fun I've had in Iron Banner. But whether or not you should use Multimach or Showrunner, it's gonna come down to personal preference. I think Under Over plus kinetic tremors is really something to consider. And I'm looking forward to enhancing both of those in the final shape. Now, for my PvP players, should you be using Multimach? Guys, I'm gonna say it. I don't like it. And dude, I know it's crazy to even say that. Multimach is considered one of the best PvP SMGs, at least in the previous generation. But in today's age, I am having a hard time choosing Multimach over the stacked options we have just within a slot, from Immortal to Unending Tempest to even Submission. But let me be frank, I'm having a hard time using SMGs just in general in the sandbox. And I know that sounds crazy, because not that long ago, submachine guns were the king. But since the special ammo changes, things have just changed in the meta, and more people are rocking double primary. Now, a lot of these double primary scenarios are normally an auto rifle, like Summoner, or a 450 auto rifle, like Prosecutor, paired with a sidearm. You see, what I run into when using an SMG these days is that I get wrecked against a good sidearm user. Fellas, raise your hand if you've been killed by heliocentric a million times here lately. And look, it's not just helio. You've got Drang, you've got empirical evidence, you've got the trial sidearm forgiveness, cryosthesia is making a return, Traveler's Chosen is still around. Where I can see myself using an SMG is if I'm pairing it with a sniper rifle or a grenade launcher. But what happens is suddenly I'm out of special ammo and I find myself using a weapon. At least from Multimach specifically, I find myself using an SMG that's losing against Summoner in 1v1s, especially leading up into that mid-range. I mean, Summoner is so good this season for a variety of reasons, and I know the Artifact mod is really contributing to that. But then, when I get into close territory, where I'm supposed to truly shine, I get met with a sidearm, and I get shredded. Listen, guys, I know time to kill wise, everything looks good here. 0.73 second TTK at 11 crits, 1 body for tier 10 to tier 7 resilience, 0.67 time to kill values at 11 crits from tier 6 and below. Even target lock has some use here. From tier 10 to tier 6, you're able to get a kill in 11 crits, 0.67 seconds. No, it's not a huge difference. Again, it procs after only 20% of the magazine has been shot, but it does edge just slightly. Then from tier 5 and below, it's 0.67 at 10 crits, 1 body. And then of course you got kill clip, which can range anywhere between 0.6 seconds to 0.53. Now there's a case to be made for kinetic trimmers, most notably enhanceable kinetic trimmers. And maybe that's gonna be a play in the final shape. Personally though, by the time I'm proccing kinetic trimmers, which is 14 shots, the guy in front of me is killing me with a summoner. It takes 0.86 seconds for me to proc kinetic trimmers. That gunfight has already been concluded. I'm dead. Best case scenario, I'm actually gonna get a trade. So overall, I don't necessarily think this is a fault of Multimach. I just think we're in a sandbox now that really rewards sidearms. And in those engagements, do I wanna use a Multimach or a trespasser? And the moment I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pull back and I'm gonna create some distance between me and this sidearm user. Boom, they pull out an auto rifle. Now granted, next week we're gonna be getting some changes to auto rifles. Bungie's gonna nerf them, but keep in mind, it's just 450 round per minute auto rifles that Bungie's gonna be touching. 600s, where Summoner lives, is still gonna be dominant. And I found myself in so many duels against Summoner users thinking to myself, why should I be using Multimach when I could just literally be using Summoner? God roll wise, if you so wish to lock down a PvP Multimach, I enjoyed tap the trigger and moving target. I also enjoyed tap the trigger and dynamic sway, both of which are going to be much better in the final shape, as both of those perks will activate longer and in Dynamic's case sooner when they're enhanceable. For my folks trying to overcommit there with Iron Reach like we used to do in the past, let me just say 8 stability sucks. If you're going to do it, you're going to have to do Dynamic Sway. And look, that's a play to be made. Dynamic, Iron Reach, both enhanceable. I'm assuming enhanced Iron Reach won't hurt my stability as much. And then of course we've got Kill Clip and Target Lock if you guys want to rock that. But again, for me, when using Multimach, I'm like, look, I want more consistency. This thing's a bullet hose. Tap the trigger dynamic or tap the trigger moving target, or swap out for Iron Reach. I know this is nothing flashy and this is very basic, but in my opinion, Multimach is just not impressing me inside of Crucible. Not saying it's not a good SMG, but at this current sandbox, it gets lit the hell up against opponents that have thumbs. All right, guys, that's it. That is my review. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Again, if you haven't checked out our Tusk of the Boar review, we'll link that down below. And in my opinion, that is the weapon you should be chasing this Iron Banner. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.